Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another video. So this is a quick intro. It's not a very inspiring picture, I get, but what I'm going to do today is do a video on how I'm going to do some soldering. Now, if you've watched previous videos, you'll know that my soldering isn't fantastic. I'm not particularly confident at soldering, although I can weld reasonably well. On RC radio control cars, soldering does come into effect if you're the type of person who upgrades and probably races. As far as the hobbyist, or if you're doing things like just building kits from for a shelf, or you're just building kits out of a box, there's not much soldering, if any, to do, to be honest with you. But if you start upgrading and changing the electronic side of it, and rerouting your wires, then quite possibly you'll come across some soldering. Now, this video is just me soldering and cut and shut on a battery for my Tamiya Hotshot. The wires on a Hotshot, generally speaking, they're just too long. They all stick out all over the place. So this video is just my process of going through. Like I said in the video, if there's any tips or bits and pieces that you feel that I should do different, or tips on tools, technique, equipment, let me know. I'm all ears. Soldering's not, I enjoy it, but I'm not very good at it. But I have improved since doing the RC and since doing these videos, because I've had to solder stuff together. May not have filmed it, but this time I've sort of gone through the process because I feel reasonably confident that I can do it. So sit back, it's not a very long video, and at the end let me know your thoughts. Enjoy.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, sim fans, race fans and RC fans. Racing 393. For today's video, I'm going to show you how I solder on my kits. Now, if you've watched previous videos, you will notice that I'm not particularly very good at it. Over time, you get different equipment, you just practice and you get better at it. Now, I think I'm at a stage where I feel confident enough to do it in front of a camera to warrant that I can show other people how I solder. It's not the best by any stretch. There's people out there who are much highly skilled in this area than I am. But you know, soldering on RC kits nowadays is, I wouldn't say common, because most things come ready to sort of plug in and play. If you go down the speciality route, i.e. racing, where things, you know, when you buy a race buggy or a race on-road race 1/10 or something, it doesn't come totally complete. You know, the Tamiya kits, Kyosho, to name a couple, they come, for the most part, all in the box, ready for you to build and run and use. Now, when you go down the route of any racing, invariably you buy the kit, you'll then buy a speed controller and a motor, batteries, and generally they'll all be different. They'll all be separate. I mean, I know you don't get NiCads with Tamiya kits, and when you do buy NiCads, they come with the Tamiya connection, normal standard stuff. Do you know what I mean? So, but if you want to do racing at a high level, or you just like upgrading your own cars at home, or you might get a wire that breaks off a motor, you want to try a motor and the wire comes off, or in this case, sometimes the wiring between the battery lead and the speed controller is just too long. And the buggy I'm talking about in particular here is the Hotshot 2, the Blockhead Motors edition. There just isn't enough space under the body to hide the wires, so I don't like them sticking out. Even the motor wires are relatively tight, but they're easier to hide. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to cut this down. So that's generally how, on this one anyway, that's how long it is. I need to cut it off and then shorten it. I need to half that length, because when that's in the car, if you imagine that being in the car like that, I just need that to plug into the speed controller like this. So it goes under the body of the blockhead Hotshot, and the other side just plugs into here. It just sticks out of the chassis enough just to plug around. I've got too much of this. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how I do that. So firstly, I'm going to show you the equipment I use. Now, this isn't particularly high-end by any stretch, but it works. Now, I used to have, well, I've still got, I should say, a typical soldering iron. It plugs in. This one plugs in to like an American way, but I've got an adapter for that. But I don't tend to use that one anymore. All I've got at the moment is just like a little station here. So it comes with solder, the soldering iron attached. It's a nice length. The lead is good. The tip I use for this is just literally a coned tip like that for what I need, and that tends to work well. It's also got little bendy hands which you can hold on to things, which is useful for what I'm about to do here. So the soldering wire, now this came with it, what they say that is, so 0.8 to 1 mil. It's plenty for what I need, but this is perhaps what I shouldn't be using, but it works fine. This is lead-free solder, which is generally what they supply now. I do have some other solder here. This is lead solder. Yeah, it would work much better, but for me, I'm quite happy using this type of solder here. There's no real problem with it. In fact, I've got another bit loose which I'll probably use anyway. The other thing I have got is some plastic sheath. Now this will go over what I cut, like cut and shut. And once that's over and the soldering's done, we just put a little bit of heat on this with like a lighter, and it sort of shrinks onto where I've soldered to keep it protected. So first things first, I'm just going to cut this down. One tip here is don't cut both wires at the same time. I've done that. Don't do it, because it will short out and you could cause a fire. So I'm going to cut one at a time, and then I'm going to get the length where I need it, and then I'm going to trim the plastic off the ends. So I use just a simple, trimmer here. You can cut wire, crimp wire, and cut the wire itself. I could cut these wires with that bit there, but I won't do that. And I'll use these to sort of take the plastic coating off the wire to expose the wire, which I'll do now. So that's what I use for that. Right, let me get back to what I was supposed to be doing. So it goes without saying not to cut these at the same time and separate. And to point out another obvious trait is don't mix these up when soldering them back together. Red on red, black on black in this case. So I've just cut the end off. Now I'm going to cut another, I don't know, maybe I'm going to cut another inch off of here so that it's a lot shorter. You don't want to get too close to the end here, because you know when you're soldering, the heat will transfer down and could damage the batteries. You've got to be very careful. And likewise up this end. So in theory, although that's there, if you look at this, that's kind of where it was, like this. And where I'm going to move this to is probably going to be, it's probably about just over an inch. It's probably going to be like that. So it'll be a much shorter link. And so I'm going to take possibly just over an inch off that. So I'm going to need to cut back this bit, and then I'm going to expose the wires, then I'm going to be back. I've cut the wires down and I've twisted the ends. I've taken the plastic off the ends, the wire covering, just enough so they're exposed. It still goes without saying that these wires, that black wire there and the red wire there, if they touch, they are live. So you must keep them apart. Ideally, I think what I might do is I'm going to cover that with some plastic, just some like PVC tape or something whilst I do this, whilst I perhaps do one side and the other. So the next plan is to tin, what they call tin, the ends of these wires. That means putting the soldering iron near the bare wire and then just coating them with a small amount of solder. That's what I am going to do, but first I'm going to get something just to cover one end of these wires. I'll probably cover the black one for now because it doesn't really matter which way around you do it, providing that I put them on, you know, remember, correct way around, red to red, black to black. And when this is a 5,000 milliamp hour nickel metal hydride battery, it does put out some punch. Also think it is fairly well charged as well, so I've got to be very careful here. I don't want to start a great big explosion in my house. So I just need to get some PVC tape. I don't have any right here at the moment. Incidentally, what I could have done is cut the ends off, put a battery connector on, crimped some ends on and shortened it that way. I'm just trying to think. I have a battery connector, but like here, I've got this one here. This is just an older one with a Dean's connector on, but I don't think I had any. The inserts, the metal inserts which go inside these plugs, I'm pretty sure I did have some, but anyway, I don't think I have got any of those. But so that's another way, and probably a safer way to do it, but you still need to expose the ends, so the danger is still there. So let me just get some tape to eliminate any sort of problems when I move these wires around. So I've just put some red PVC tape around there to stop the two touching. I'm just going to set the station up now for my soldering station, just as support. I'm going to use these arms. I'm going to use the plastic arms here. So my soldering iron's set at full whack, 480 degrees. It seems to work better that way. I did try it less than that, but you get more of a quicker dissipation of heat. So using the heat, don't make it too high, obviously, it depends what you're doing, but it's the heat transfer which makes soldering easier. Now, I'm not an expert. I don't know. I'm just a guy soldering at home. So any soldering experts out there, by all means, you can pipe up and put what you think the correct way of doing it is. This is the way I do it. If there's a better way, then I'm all ears, and I'm quite happy for recommendations on equipment. Bearing in mind, I'm a hobbyist. I'm not a professional, so I'm not spending hundreds of pounds on equipment. But if there's a better solution, then by all means, let me know what you use. I'm all ears, and I probably will go and buy something if it's recommended. So let me just tin. It's the black ones I'm going to do. So I'm going to tin the ends of these. I'll probably show you on the ends here, because these are sort of the least dangerous ends, aren't they? I could pin that up, and I'll actually show you in real time of tinning the end of the wire. So let me just put things where I need it, and then I'll be back. So I hope you can see that. It's difficult. I could do with a much high quality, a GoPro camera is not ideal, is it? But that's for another day probably. Right, so you can see here, I'll use the solder at the moment to point. That's the end, what I need to tin. Now you have to put solder on the ends so that when you make them together and heat them up, it's a lot easier to get the solder to pass through and kind of fuse together, if you like. If you try and just hold two bits of wire together and then drop solder on both of them, it just won't work. It'll be a complete mess. The beauty of this is if I muck this up, I can do another cut, can't I? So anyway, so I've just got to I've just got to get myself in position where I can, without getting in the way of the camera, so because when I'm filming it makes it just that little bit more difficult. So I'm going to put a little bit of heat onto the end here. And then with this solder, I'm just literally so hopefully you can see that. It's not, I'm not going to say it's mega good. There is a small amount, I might need more than that, of solder on the end. I can't see that from where I'm sat because the camera is in the way, and looking at the camera I think it needs a bit more. So that's the plan. Now I'm going to do both of them and then I'll come back and show you I mean, you can see what I did there. You sort of heat it up and the heat transfer through the wire melts the solder onto the bare wire, making sure you twist the ends of the wire because you don't want flaying little bits out because it just makes it look untidy. But let me do that, let me finish that off and I'll come back and I'll show you. So both ends are tinned. It might be a little bit too much on the red one, but hopefully I can get some transfer between the two wires. Now the tricky bit now, because there's a lot of heat transfer and it only literally, once it gets hot enough to melt the solder, the heat does travel down the wire. Now clearly when you've got like the battery connections here, there's not a lot there with the heat travelling down the wire. I've got to be super careful, but I've got to tin the battery sides first. So I will do the black lead first, and then I'll probably solder it together and then seal it with the sheath, with the shrink wrap, the piping. So the important thing is, this also goes without, you know, a bit obvious. When you do solder these two wires together, don't forget to put that on. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to be a bit stuck. I mean, you can tape it up, put some PVC tape around it, but it's not ideal. It's not, if the wires do bear through, it can cause an electrical fire. So I'm going to keep the battery side, the red lead covered up whilst I tin the black and solder the black ones together. If I can, I'm going to try and film that. It's just a bit awkward with the camera right where I need to look. So okay, let me sort that out. I do use this on my soldering irons. I think this is what's this called, flux, is it? Is that called flux? It just, the tip of your soldering iron to be kept clean. That's another tip. I don't know if this is sort of the best stuff, but it does, if I'll show you there, it does clean the end of any bits and pieces and residue. And I've got like on my soldering station, there's a pad that is damp, and you can just sort of wipe that clean so that it's as clean as possible. Yeah, so I do use that. So I have tinned the black connector on the battery. You can see that there. I'm now going to attempt to put them together, not forgetting to put that on. And that, I've done the black one, I'm going to move that. So I've got a little bit of shrink wrap around it. I soldered them together, and then what I did, I used the end of these crimping wires just to crimp down the solder a little bit, because it was a little bit blocky, and it was a good join, and now it's together. It is a bit shorter. It's not the neatest of joins, if you look, but it's safe. It is connected, and when doing this, what I do is do it bit by bit to stop the heat transfer up the battery lead. So you just get it hot enough to get together, let it cool a little bit, put another little bit of solder on, melt the, infuse the solder that's already on the wires, gradually, step by step, and eventually it goes together without heat transfer up the wire and possibly damaging your batteries. That's the disadvantages of having a shorter lead and having to do this. The easier way would be to cut and replace the end, because you'll be soldering at this end anyway with the bits that go in there, like the what are they called? The plugs, if you like, the metal plugs inside there. And I also think maybe they're crimped on anyway, so maybe there's no soldering involved at all. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to cut. I'm going to take this red plastic off here, cut some more wire covering, stick one on each side. I've got a black one here just in case. That got a little bit hot, so it shrunk wrapped on there. The other side didn't. So I'll do the same. I can use either side then. It doesn't really matter. So let me do that and I'll be right back. I'm just going to show you what I did just before I put the cover on. I don't know whether you can see that on my finger there, but what I did, I tinned both sides. I then, like I said before, with these, the ends, the crimping part, I crimped the ends of the wires down a bit flatter so that I could use them as like flat plates against each other, like tinned flat plates. And then solder them together and then crimp them again a little bit. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, if it might break the solder, but it seems a fairly solid joint there now, like this side. So I'm just now going to put that little bit of plastic over it. The heat transfer sort of tends to travel up here, so I tend to be more on this side, so less heat travels up this side, and this end part here is still loose. So I'm just going to put that across and then put a flame to it, and it will shrink it on. And then I'm going to fit it in the car, and we're going to see, making sure that this is in the right length, and I'll show you that process. And there you have it. So that's now connected, shut and cut. It's a much shorter length. Yeah, it looks alright. I'm not going to test it out because my controller's upstairs. So I don't know if it works. It should go. No heat travelled up here, because that's why I got the wire shrink wrap, whatever you want to call it, sheath on this side, just to prove that no real heat transfer was up there, because any slight heat transfer up would have made this wrap shrink onto the wire this end. Yeah, and it's probably not the best way, but it's the way that I will do it. Now I'm going to put this in the car and show you the end result. And there it is. It's not in its final position, but it will do for now. I mean, it can be manipulated a little bit more, but at least it's sort of underneath the car and the wire isn't sticking out. There is still slack there. I haven't plugged it fully in, but there's still slack. That can sit a little bit lower. I can manipulate the wires there a little bit, and it saves it sticking out all around here, which looks crap. So yeah, so the next bit to do on the car is the wires on the motor. I've ordered them, but I've actually found a couple, so I don't think there's any soldering involved. So I might give that a go, but I won't film that because it's going to be less interesting. But anyway, let me know what you think. Give me your feedback and any of your soldering tips, anything I've missed, equipment, technique, specific parts that you use, specific solder. Am I using the right tip? Have you learnt anything? Let me know, and I will catch you on my next video. Thanks very much for watching, and bye for now.
Right, so that's it. There's my outro. That's all done. Looks quite neat and tidy. I hope it works. It seems, I've done it before and it seemed to work okay. The motor wires, I've got some bits coming on Monday. I had some parts, but they weren't properly suitable. The wires on the motor themselves were a little bit too fat for the connectors that I had. So there's a possibility I might have to take some of the solder that's already on the motor side, take the solder off, and put some connectors on. But those are due on Monday, so I'll do that then, and that will be done. And then, as far as the car's concerned, it's pretty much done, apart from perhaps putting in another pinion or something like that. But anyway, so that's what I do for soldering bits and pieces. I was quite happy with my finished outcome there. It seemed to work fine for me. There's still bits and pieces that I can improve at, but you know, over time, hopefully with some feedback from anyone watching and tips, I'll be able to get better at it next time. So, like I say, I hope you enjoyed the video. There are more videos very soon. Just quickly looking at my analytics of my videos, I've noticed that there's like quite what I'd expect, to be honest. It's like 93% of people not subscribed that watch the video. There's only 6% that watch. I don't know. Is that that's pretty normal for a channel my size. And a lot of my video audience, UK and the US. So I'd like to say thank you to the US of A. One of my favourite and go-to countries. Been there loads of times. Would live there actually if I had the chance. But I'd like to say a personal thank you to everyone at the US that watches. There's also a few people in Japan, so I'll have to learn some Japanese. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure I will next time. And again, thank you to everyone in the UK, obviously, for watching. There's a few small percentages of people in other countries around the world. So again, thanks to you guys. But if you're not subscribed, just click the button, click the notifications. It all helps, and it's free. So I appreciate all that. Anyway, thanks in advance, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.